Outer Orange.
You clicked on this video because you want to know potentially what is going to win worlds for Cardfight Vanguard. Hopefully today I can help you answer those questions. All right, привет, we are here to discuss premium worlds and what's gonna top, what's not gonna top. We did a somewhere one for V. You can check that out somewhere around here. And yeah, today we're gonna be talking about premium. Welcome to 2024, by the way. Happy New Year. And let's go ahead and get started. My knowledge of premium has definitely gotten better in the last couple months versus the last video I did on premium, where I was kind of a little bit more shaky and I had the chat help me. But this time I think we'll be fine. You know, me and you and me, us just looking at this and kind of breaking it down. But you know, we're not gonna be fine on is remembering these icons, because for some reason this one has them all jumbled up and I'm scared for my life, but we'll figure it out. All right, so this one is Shadow Paladin right here. Throw this in the will not top worlds. I think Shadows has some interesting tools and stuff like that I can do, but I do think that it's just fair enough to where people won't be taking it because there's other more unfair decks, and I just think there's better options. So people are probably going to stay away from this one. Spike Brothers, I think, has a chance of topping. There's some really interesting things you can do with this deck, some looping you can do, a bunch of little effects with the on-hit stuff. It's a little high roll, but there is still hope for this deck to kind of break through, so we're going to put it in the topping category. Now give me a second, I'm going to figure out what in the world this is. Tachikaze. There is a chance that there might be some person, a very particular individual, that might take this. I really doubt they will, but they might. But considering how unusually rare people play this deck, we're going to put it in the not topping category. I do think this deck has some interesting, or the Tachikaze has some interesting mechanics it can do. It can kind of like push through some games, but at the end of the day, I think there's still like other more unfair things that other decks can do, and I don't think this is going to make it through. We have Angel Feather. Now Angel Feather is an interesting one because it's got Gize and stuff like that, and I don't think people are playing bugs as much now as they were in the last couple months. I feel like it's gonna be a little bit easier to take Angel Feather Gize. However, I am gonna throw it in a not topping tier. There's a shot that someone in top 8 might break through with Gize, but I'm gonna say that most people, especially high level players, know how to play around Gize enough to the point where they shouldn't be losing to this deck unless there's like some random super big high roll happens. But because of that, I even more so think that this deck just doesn't have the capabilities. I think this is definitely more of like a cheese deck, more of like a haha hee hee, you don't know how to play around this and you're just going to die type of situation, whereas I feel like the deck strength just doesn't outweigh taking it. So I'm going to say it's a no. I do think Neo Nectar can top. I think this deck's actually kind of insane. I really doubt people have been like saying like, no, this deck's not that good, but I really think this deck's like really strong. If it doesn't see bugs, it's like insanely powerful. This deck is very, very, very hard to play around. It's insanely strong. It deck thins. It just does, it gets power. It has defensive options, offensive options. There's just so much this deck is capable of doing now, especially with D cards and V cards and premium cards kind of combined. I genuinely think this deck's kind of insane, and I would be surprised if we don't see someone top with Katrina, basically. Next we have Aquaforce. I don't think Aquaforce can top unless there's something that's changed that I don't know about. I just don't think this deck is capable of doing that. It's okay. The deck's actually pretty decent. I just think it's too slow now versus everything else that's been happening in premium recently. Because of that, I just don't think there's any good variation in there. I know some people have been still experimenting with the Magnolia concept and kind of going with a Thalas approach. It's not bad, don't get me wrong. You draw a ton of cards. I just don't think it's enough. Next we have Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle did get the Martoa ban. It should be happening in approximately 9 days as of me recording this. So by the time you're seeing this, probably 8 days. And yeah, Bermuda Triangle is still going to top even with the loop gone. And the reason being is Highlander is still very powerful. Anj is actually pretty good too. I value Anj pretty highly. Not like ooh, best deck in the format, anything like that, but I do think it's actually a pretty relatively good deck. A lot of people have been testing it, and overall it's pretty good. And I do believe that Highlander is still like at one of the better options as well. It does have some bad matchups, and that is definitely something to kind of keep in mind, but because it's a popular pick and that stride just goes crazy with Kotruda and everything, that I do believe that this deck will still be seeing results, and because of that, I believe it can top. Now DI, I think DI is a little funky, though there are some people who have been trying with it, but I think it's a not topping deck. It's good when it's good, and it's bad when it's bad type of thing, and I just think it's just not enough to kind of break through the meta. Next we have DP. I'm going to put DP in the not topping category. However, I do think DP is relatively strong. It does have some pretty bad matchups kind of up here-ish. This deck just loses if you kill it fast enough, and the minute a deck like this or this strides and DP only has strode once, basically they'll just die. If they get to the late game and they can cheese out a win, sure, but otherwise the deck just they can't win. This deck into solar decks is like insane, but I think like decks like these are just a little too fast for it, and I think that's what kills it. You can also, if you really want, you could like ride down into this if they're playing like a normal package of DP stuff, and you can just screw up their stride even more. I just feel like overall deck's good on its own. I just think it's not good in the current meta that we're in. Next we have Gear Chronicle. I do think we'll probably see a Gear Chronicle top somewhere. It kind of just depends if the Gear Chronicle player is actually going to play Gear Chronicle. I think Gear Chronicle is still good, and I value personally I still value it. I think it's still a very, very good contender in this grand scheme of things. I don't think it's as impactful as it was, obviously, you know, a bit back, but actually even a year ago, I'd say it will be extremely impactful, and now with this upcoming Worlds it's definitely less impactful, but the deck's still good. The deck is still strong. The deck still has a lot of utility, a lot of stuff it can do, and there's definitely a lot of good Gear Chronicle players within the scope of the top players of premium, so we might actually see it. Next we have Genesis. I don't deem Genesis as a topping deck, but I could be wrong. I think my knowledge on Genesis is probably the worst, or one of the worst in this grammar scheme of things, so I'm gonna put it in the not top category as like a safety thing, but there might be a chance that it might actually show results. I'm gonna say Golds is not gonna top. However, I will make one thing very clear, and I've been actually testing this myself. There is a new card that came out for D. It's meant for Ezel, and that card is actually pretty good. And is it good enough to play Gold Paladins without the over trigger? I don't know, but it is very impactful. It does change how Ezel works, and it is overall a very strong card. It gives 5k to the front row, which is something Golds really likes to see. They like the power, because they really lack, especially Ezel. The Ezel deck just lacks all that stuff, but if you combine this with like the Superior Ride, and then going into Spear X, if you try to make like a little baby package where you self-damage yourself and do all this crazy stuff, you can kind of go into Ultima faster, on top of also hitting numbers, and overall you can kind of make like a relatively pretty good deck. There is a shot, I think, for Golds to get somewhere. I just don't know if it's unfair enough to reach this category up here. So it's kind of hard to say, but I will say there's definitely some cooking going on. The card is kind of pricey too, and maybe we'll see some results, maybe we won't. Grand Blue, I think, should be obvious. Probably will top, unless they just see like a ton of Bugs players, if there are any Bugs players. Grand Blue is insane. Very definitely up here on the more of the unfair scale. I'd say it's probably one of the best options to take personally. It has some bad matchups, obviously. Getting rushed down by this deck is like pretty. Rushing this deck down hurts usually Grand Blue. They usually kind of die to certain rush down approaches. There's definitely ways to just flop sideways and go oops. The deck is a lot of like, it's almost like a Highlander style. Sometimes you just don't see your stuff because you have a bunch of like techs in it and you just kind of fall off. It does happen. Also, 9k bases kind of hurt. Again, like I said, the rush down can really hurt if you don't mill in fast in time or don't see certain pieces. The deck pulls off. But it's still a very strong deck. It draws a ton. Once it sees the on-hit stride, it just gets it just flips it on its own. It just gets a lot better. You just have to be very cautious of how you play into certain decks. Great Nature, I definitely think Great Nature is not a topping deck right now, and I'm sorry, it's just how it is. I just don't think anything in there is really that insane. Kagero, I don't think Kagero will top. I actually think this deck is extremely fair. I know we had like a result recently with it that I believe it got like second or something on the BCSs, but I do think Kagero, even with the overlord package and everything, is a pretty fair deck. I will say, if the OT gets checked, just that a little bit, but I think with OT not being in mind, I do think that Kagero is pretty fair. It's very player routable if you're on a really good deck, if you know what you're doing. You're usually fine. Kagero is very easy to plan out. Like the minute you see the starter flip, you already know, like usually you should know what's going to happen. I don't think Link Joker is that great either. After I started talking to better players about is this Link Joker? It is Link Joker. After I started talking to better players about how to play into Link Joker better, I found out very quickly that Link Joker is pretty okay. Like, especially, like I said, if you're on a good deck, I feel like this deck just doesn't, it's just not really like scary anymore. Like it's a scary deck if you're unaware. But again, we're talking about top level players here. They've tested into this matchup probably a billion times. They know what they're doing. They know how to play around Link Joker, and because of that, I think Link Joker will not pop. It's overall good. We got the crest mechanics too. Same with the Gear Chronicle with the Jet crest mechanic. But I do think that if you're like a Bermuda Triangle player or something, it's usually should be in your favor, unless again like something happens that's a little bit more unfair. Especially the over trigger in this clan. It's pretty busted. Under a stride turn, things can happen. Next, we have a Bugs. A while back, I was pretty sure that Bugs was like a very solid pick. I think now with all the time that's passed, people got like more, I guess, better understanding how to fight it. I do think it's not going to top, partially because I think people aren't going to feel confident enough to take the deck because of the decks up here. However, there are two decks up here that is very obvious. Like people are going to know people are going to take these decks type of thing. And then because they're going to know about this, maybe we're going to want to play Bugs into this, including Spikes, by the way. Spikes gets kind of shut down. So does Gear Chronicle to some degree. So because of that, people might consider taking Bugs. So there is actually a chance that this deck actually might show some results. I, however, think that the deck is just It's really strong. I actually think it's really annoying to face. No matter what deck I'm playing, I tend to struggle into this deck. Maybe it's a me problem, but I do think that enough people will be aware of like bugs and they'll be able to kind of get around it somehow, just enough to where it won't matter. But we'll see. I could be wrong about this one. This one I am a little bit more skeptical on, but I'm kind of confident that we probably won't see it in the tops. Next we have Murakumo. Definitely, I don't think it's a top 10 contender. It does some cool stuff, and they're actually getting some cool new stuff coming, but with the new promos that they revealed, but I don't think it's going to make it in time for Worlds. And this deck's pretty complicated too. Like usually the stuff in here is pretty complicated to build, and it's not an easy clan to take typically, because you could just kind of, it's kind of toolboxy and weird, and it just does a bunch of weird stuff. Nakami's a weird one. I feel like people are going to take it, and I do think it's going to show results because of that. It's a very popular pick, and like I'm not saying that because it's popular it's going to top, but I will say I feel like a lot of people are going to be on it, so I think it'll just increase the chances of it topping, because it's not like the deck's bad. It's a little harder, I think, to top with it now versus a couple months back before the other ban list I hit, but I do think it's still a pretty annoying deck. It still has a lot of advantages that in its favor. Because of that, we'll probably see results. So let's see. Nova Grappler has a shot. It's actually a pretty strong deck, but I'm going to put it in the non-topping category. I feel like people are going to take this. They're going to want to take this because they just want to enter and they don't really want to like play to win. I do think that this is definitely more of like a baby pick. Like, oh, this is my baby, I want to play it. More so than playing it to like win Worlds. Because of that, I don't think it's going to top. I've deemed Nubatama pretty high up there. I think it's a very impactful deck. We've actually seen a lot of results on it, and this deck has a chance of topping. However, I think players are starting to understand how to play into Nubatama better. And I think because of that, we're going to put it in a not topping category. I will say I think this will probably have a result because there's just been so many people on this deck more recently. But I also think more people have been testing into it. I think early on, people really did not know how to fight into the Nubatama, because Nubatama is really strong, especially when your opponent doesn't know what to do against it. Like me at my BCS that I just went to, where I did an oopsie and it costed me the game. But you know, then because of that, it's if you misplay into this deck, you'll lose type of thing. Like it's like almost guaranteed if you misplay into this deck, you'll probably lose. But also the good players should know how to play into this, and because of that, they should have just enough knowledge to where they should be able to scrape by. But I will say it's really tough. Oracle Think Tank is actually pretty good. It's got some really annoying stuff, but I'm gonna put it in a not topping category. I think there's some decks up here that kind of play around OTT pretty well. It's very annoying. It's got some really good strides, got some really annoying win cons and stuff like that, but I don't think it's enough. We have Pale Moon. I definitely think Pale Moon's not in the topping category. It's got some interesting toolbox mechanics, but I think as a deck on it, it's just got too much random stuff going on. There's no like real like linear direction. Nightmare Dolls is pretty good, but I don't think it's good enough. It's not a bad choice, to be honest. If you're like, man, I kind of just want to play Nightmare Dolls, go for it. I mean, you'll probably get a win or two. You could probably break through. You really could, but it'll be really hard. Dust is still Dust. Dust is still kind of insane. Last but not least, we have Royal Paladin. Now, Royal Paladin is kind of interesting because it has been showing results in basically all formats. It's not a bad choice. There's some crazy stuff it can do. However, I think part of the craziness is the fact that people don't know what to do against it, especially early on. People didn't know what to do against it. I feel like a lot of it comes down to matchup knowledge with this one. I think if you play carefully, this matchup is a lot easier to deal with, and I overall think it's not going to top. It might, who knows? There's a lot of Royal Paladin stands out there. The Alt Mile combination with Jewel Knights package is good, and then there's just like the pure Jewel Knights package you can go. The double stride turn is pretty insane. They kind of have to get there in time. But yeah, there's that, and Royal Paladin has been getting some good cards that kind of make it work and stuff like that. So there's definitely some stuff to look out for. I will say I do think the deck sometimes just opens the nuts, and it's just very hard to play into. Like no matter what you do, you just kind of get like put in the back burner. I actually think the Royal Paladin into Grand Blue is a very scary matchup, as I've been in that road where I've had to face Royal Paladin players. I think one of the people that was going to the event I faced in the past, and I lost in Swiss and then beat him in top 8 because the deck's kind of scary. It was one of those things where I kind of forgot how to play into it, and then like once we got top 8, I was like, okay, I remember what to do this time, and I kind of had a better time. However, that rush is just so aggro, and as I mentioned, Grand Blue doesn't like rush that aggressively, and this deck just rushes like crazy, and eventually you just kind of run out of steam. You run out of you basically start bricking weirdly enough against it, because you're like damaging pieces and you're taking a lot of damage and you're not fighting heal guardians at the time, and stuff just kind of goes, when stuff goes against you, this deck just pops off. So that's what I think will top. Now we're gonna I did this with B, we're gonna do one for this one too. My thoughts on what deck I think will actually take the whole event out of everything in here. You know, basically out of these 6 choices up here, these are all very good decks in my opinion. I'm just gonna take a guess here because I'm not gonna lie, this is actually a very, very, very hard choice. The reason being is that all of these decks, including even some of the ones down here, have just enough to break through to where they can win. I'm personally gonna deem, I'm probably stupid. Like I'm probably stupid, but I'm gonna put Bermuda Triangle. I think Bermuda Triangle might take it all. I feel like my top 3 choices is Bermuda Triangle, Grand Blue, and Neo Nectar. But I'm just gonna put Bermuda Triangle. I think Bermuda Triangle has a shot at like taking it all. Like I said, I'm probably wrong. I think Bermuda has enough tools to where it can get through all this. I think its worst matchup is actually Neo Nectar. And that's why I'm thinking like Neo Nectar might be the spotlight one. But I think Neo Nectar is insane, and Bermuda just does not have enough hand advantage to deal with that deck. Like, you only have so many PGs, and you have to kill them like ASAP. And if you don't, I feel like you just lose. So that's why I think Neo Nectar. It's like to me, it's like either Neo Nectar or Bermuda Triangle. I feel like if Neo Nectar just doesn't see bugs, they're probably just gonna take the whole thing, because I think that deck's just insane. But maybe that's just me. Maybe it's a me thing. Maybe I'm just weird. I don't know. But this is what I'm gonna deem it. First place, Bermuda Triangle. I will be in Japan casting with JJ, so we'll be doing B, and right beside us will probably be premium, and the other side of us will be D. So we're gonna be really exciting stuff. So I can't wait to see who takes it all. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, comment, do all that wonderful stuff. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think is gonna win Worlds? If you're right, I'll pin your comment. I'll try and pin the comment, the one that has the most likes on it. I'll just try and pin it and get it up there if you were correct. That way everyone can see that you're the best and you're awesome and you knew what deck's gonna win because you're the best. Well, on that, guys, 50cards.shop, code orange for any of your goodies. If you need any cards, we have lyrical dropping kind of soon. So 50cards.shop, code orange. If you need any stuff for lyrical, monasterio, or anything coming up in the future sets, divine Z is coming out pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. But guys, peace out. Das vidanios. See you guys in a future video. Bye.